Hi everyone and welcome to another coffee chat session with me. Today we're going to be talking about but before that, I highly recommend that you get yourself a beverage of your choice, and I'm going to get myself a cup of coffee because I love coffee. And then we're going to discuss. Okay, so I'm back with my cup of coffee and we can start discussing about, as you would have guessed from the thumbnail, overthinking. Overthinking. So a few days ago on my Instagram, I did a little bit of a social experiment. I asked a question to all those who follow me. The question I asked is, do you tend to overthink? And I got 95% of the people saying, yes, we have a tendency to overthink. It doesn't really surprise me. I mean, it is one of the things that people tend to do. I'm guilty of it. And if you're sitting right across and you probably clicked on this video to watch, I'm guessing you would have also been a victim of overthinking, or you are a victim of overthinking, or at some point in your life, you have been a victim of overthinking. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about what is overthinking, my perspective on overthinking, my take on how can one stop overthinking, and then I'm going to read out a poem I've written on overthinking. So what is overthinking? Well, it's really simple. I mean, it doesn't take someone really great to define overthinking. Overthinking is excessive thinking, overdoing thinking, doing too much of thinking, going crazy about thinking. That's what overthinking is. And like with any emotion that is overfelt, or with any kind of action that is overdone, overthinking also leads to negative impact on us. And there's empirical data to prove the direct correlation between overthinking and anxiety, overthinking and depression. So let's talk about my perspective on overthinking. Overthinking. So if you were to break it down, over is the excessive part of it, and thinking. So is thinking really bad? No, because we as human beings are curious. We're built in ways that we are supposed to think. And it's because of thinking that we've been able to progress. If we were just sitting here and our minds were not able to think, our minds were not curious, our minds were not able to ask the right kind of questions, we would have probably not even evolved to the stage that we are in today. So thinking is not bad, but overthinking, which is overthinking, so excessive thinking, is bad. But I want to dig in deeper into this. All right, so let's get into my take, my perspective on overthinking. But before I get into that and share this framework that I've put together for you all, I'd like to make it clear, loud and clear for anyone who's watching this, I by no means am trained to give out any advice related to overthinking. I am not a trained medical practitioner. So if you feel like you're suffering with a disorder related to overthinking, or if you feel like you're excessively thinking and you need some kind of advice, please seek advice from the right person. Please go seek advice from someone who's trained to give out advice with respect to this issue. So let's get into it now. So this is a framework that I've put together for you. If you look at this, this is where you are standing. This is the present day and time where you are standing at. This is obviously a timeline. There's the past, there's the future. So more likely than not, you're going to be thinking about a situation either in the past or in the future. Thinking, I'm saying. Now, overthinking is what this framework is about, and I'm going to talk about, you might be overthinking a situation that is in the past, or you could overthink about a situation that is in the future. Now, it's very, very rare to really sit and overthink the reality of the situation. But where overthinking starts is where you start overthinking about the uncertainty related to that situation, or the uncertainties related to that situation. As an example, let's talk about, in the past there was a situation, so there was an exam that you took and you performed poorly in it. The reality of it is that you've performed poorly at the exam, or you've not got satisfactory results as you had expected. You had put in your hard, you had put in hours of working on it, you had trained really hard, and you had expected a different kind of result. You're going to question the uncertainty and you're going to think about the uncertainty. If you're thinking about it and you're arriving at conclusive results, that is introspection. And that is important, because if you think about evolution, the reason that we have been able to evolve is because we think. We are thinking human beings, and we think, and that's great, because thinking in a way that it pushes us to arrive at conclusions and conclusive results that help us evolve is great. Because if you're introspecting, you can definitely come to some kind of thoughts about, what can I do better? What can I do? What are some of the things that I can pick up from the failure or something that I was dissatisfied about in the past? That is thinking. But if you are overthinking, there is a loop that you are overthinking. You are thinking again and again and again. That is something that is going on in the loop format over here. And you are overthinking about all the uncertainties around that situation and leading to no conclusive results. In the same example that I spoke to you about, if there was an exam that you were not satisfied with the results of, it was something that you took the exam, now the results have come out and you were not satisfied with it in the past, and you're thinking around the uncertainty. What if I had studied from another book? What if I had taken notes differently? What if I had attended a few lectures which I missed out on? But if you're doing it again and again, it's a loop and it's leading you to no conclusive results, then that is overthinking. Versus thinking where you say, okay, what if I had taken the exam and I had studied from a different book? I think the book that I referred to this time was definitely not helpful. So that is something called introspection, where you thought about it, you came to a conclusive result, you're not going to repeat it, and you're not going to go in that thought loop again. So that is one basic distinction between thinking and overthinking. And this is the framework that we can refer to, and it's something that I have put together. It's obviously only my perspective. Now let's take an example for the future. Let's say you have a situation. You want to pay off a loan by, let's say, in 10 years. That is a situation in the future. That is something in the future, a situation of the future. Now, you're thinking of all the uncertainties around it, but if you're going in a loop thinking on the uncertainties and not really arriving at any conclusive results at any point in time, and just thinking about all those uncertainties surrounding that situation, that is overthinking. But if you are thinking about it, you're taking action, you're thinking through that thought process, you're drawing out an action plan that is then leading you to actually reach the goal that you've set out for that situation, then that is thinking. That is actually putting your thoughts in a direction that is action oriented. That's thinking. So that is really where the distinction between thinking and overthinking lies. This is the framework that I've put together, and you can refer to it if you feel like. Okay, great. So you now know my perspective on overthinking, but how can you really stop overthinking? And that is the real question, right? I mean, we all know we overthink. I overthink, you perhaps overthink, another person overthinks, and definitely 95% of the people following me on Instagram are overthinking. But how do we stop overthinking? So the first thing, my take on this is, first thing I suggest is consciousness, and which is awareness to the fact that you're overthinking. Once you know that you're overthinking, so once you know you're just building these trees that are exponentially coming up while you're thinking about something, and it's not a structured way of thinking, it's not leading to some kind of conclusive results, it's not even going to lead to a destination where it's going to stop the thinking or be like, okay, I need to do the experiment again. Based on the previous example that I gave you, you need to be conscious, you need to be self-aware of the fact that you're overthinking. And unless you do that, you really cannot stop overthinking. So one, be conscious, become aware of the fact that you are overthinking and the moment in which you are overthinking. So two, now that you have brought yourself to a point of awareness where you are aware that you are overthinking, what do? You try and bring back your thoughts to your present moment. So be in the moment, consciously. More often than not as adults, as we grow up, we think everything should happen in a very, very effortless manner, how it happened to us when we were children. Unfortunately, when we have grown up, I have realized things don't happen that way. we have to make conscious efforts towards things. We have to make conscious efforts towards relationships. We have to make conscious efforts towards so many other things. In the same way, we have to make a conscious effort to be in the moment. Perhaps when you were growing up, when you were a teenager, maybe even a few years ago, or maybe even when you were a child, more often than not when you were a child, being in the moment was very easy. But as an adult, it's not that easy. So you need to be very, very conscious of the fact that you're overthinking. And the second step is to, in an efforted manner, make the effort to bring your thoughts to the present moment that you are in. So point number 3. So now you have become aware of the fact that you were overthinking. You've also successfully been able to bring yourself and your thoughts into the present moment that you are in. What do you do next? You ask yourself the question, what is in your hands? So whatever you were overthinking about, as an example, if you were thinking about your health and you're concerned about your health, you now ask yourself, what is in your hands? What is it that you can do and what is it that you cannot do anything about? So point number 4, now that you've followed the first 3 steps, you think about, okay, if the answer to the third step was that you have certain actions or certain things in your hands that you can do, then you start building an action plan. Always recognize that overthinking, and this is something that I have realized through experience myself, I tend to overthink and be more fearful of a situation or a thought when there is no action happening in that direction. I am lacking any kind of action, then I tend to overthink. As an example, let's say you have an exam to study and you have an exam that you are worried about. Now you're overthinking, you're thinking, what will come, what will not come, what will happen, what will not. A lot of times when you're just focused on that, where is the time to even take any action? The action is lacking, and I can tell you one thing with a fair amount of certainty is when you are spending a lot of time just overthinking about what is going to happen with the exam, is when you are wasting that time that you could input into studying for it. So the action is lacking. That's where overthinking is prevailing. So now that you've made the action plan for a thing that you can do something about, start following through. Just check those boxes off. Start doing and taking actions, right? Start doing things and taking actions. And things that are not in your control, you really need to just build that kind of self-awareness. Again, it's going to be efforted. It's not something that will come naturally to you. As an adult, it is very, very, very rare to have that kind of organic, unefforted flow of things. It's very difficult. So you'll need to make that effort to be conscious of the fact that, or build that kind of awareness, well, there's really nothing I can do about it. So I need to keep pulling my thoughts back into the present moment, being aware of the fact that I'm overthinking about something that is not even in my control. Point number 5. Okay, so this is something that I tend to do. I've not heard of many people do it really. I tend to write my worries out. So if I feel there is something that I cannot take, especially any kind of action towards, and I am overthinking or I'm thinking a little more than I should be about it, I tend to write my worries out. If you notice, this is a bowl here. It has small chits. I just tend to write my worries out. It's an unusual method. I've not heard of many people do it. You could grab a diary, you could grab a page, you could do anything. I just put it in a bowl and I write it on chits. And it's my way of saying, the worries out of my system. It's out there. It's out in the universe and someone else is going to just take care of it for me. I don't need to let it be a part of my system or worry about it. It's an unusual thing. I've not heard many people do it, so I'm not going to be like, yes, definitely do it, but it is something that I wanted to include in the list. In addition, one more point that I want to talk about, which is meditating. I personally don't meditate, so I don't have a lot of personal experience to speak out of, but it is something that a lot of people swear by. I've heard a lot of people say that meditation helps bring back focus to their thoughts, to the present thoughts that they are in. It also helps build a heightened sense of awareness. So there's a lot of information out there about meditation. If it is something you think that you can benefit from, why not? Go check it out. There are several ways and formats of meditation. guided, unguided, you can definitely look it up and try out different things and see what suits you. So that was really my perspective on overthinking, and also just my take on how one can overcome overthinking. But we are now in that part of the video where I am going to read a poem that I've written on overthinking, which is a part of the second book that I published. So here goes. I sat below the falling stars and looked up to the sky, replaying all the events in my mind and just wondering why. I tried to join all the dots and think of the role of fate. The highs and the lows and highs, and how it all did dictate. There was no real answer my mind was able to get while I saw the stars fall right over my head. So this poem is obviously about overthinking and how overthinking leads you to no place good except for where you are at, and just you remain there. There's no real displacement as such, there's no real evolution as such. It's just that you are overthinking about something and nothing really happens. But it's a humorous take on it. It's really just saying that you might sit down there and you're beneath this beautiful sky where you could be looking at these stars and you could just be relishing the moment that you're in, versus you're sitting there, you're thinking about all the different scenarios, mapping out these trees, and if then else what'll happen, and there you go, nothing really is you don't get a conclusive answer, but what ends up happening is that those stars, just as an indication, fall right over your head. So with that thought, I'm going to say bye. I'm going to say stop overthinking, and I'm going to try and follow my own advice, because yes, as I said, preaching is so much easier than doing it. So yeah, I'm going to try and follow my own advice. I hope you follow it too, and I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please do like, share and subscribe, and also share it with your friends and family, and I'll come back with another coffee chat very soon. Bye.